Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ibrahim Tanner TV. I'm going to come today and talk about this affirmative action decision. We'll post affirmative action. I'm going to do a string of videos. This is just one of many. But there's a movie on Netflix. It's called Leave the World Behind. And like to sum it up real quick, it's about an event that happened and how people deal with this event. Is this event permanent, and do we have to live our lives a different way? Or is this event temporary and we just have to wait till this event passes over and we can get back to normal? On June 29th, 2023, Bloom and Students for Fair Administration ended race-based affirmative action. And what I see from the fallout of that is how the Asian community is moving and how the Black community is moving. And I'm going to get into that today. You know, you would think that the Asian community was, really languishing in affirmative action being ended, since they are the ones that ended it. But there's this article that says they got a lot of anxiety about it. And I really thought that was interesting. There's an article by the LA Times that speaks on how Asians are moving post affirmative action. And I thought it to be really interesting. I'm going to read a couple of segments from this article because it really sets up today's discussion. The article was titled Post-Affirmative Action, American Families Are More Stressed Than Ever About College Admissions, right? And what we find in the article is that one excerpt, it says, in the first college application season since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down affirmative action, Asian American students are more stressed out than ever. Race-conscious admissions were widely seen to have disadvantaged them, as borne out by disparities in the test scores of admitted students. But many feel that race will still be a hidden factor and that standards are even more opaque. So they're saying, even though race-based affirmative actions is dead, somehow race is going to still creep into this, and it's going to still play a role in the holding them back. So they're setting up these seminars in their community to help their students move forward and gobble up these slots that was once admitted to Black and brown people. So at seminars like Chada's, At seminars like Chada's around South Carolina this fall, some held in Korean or Mandarin. So don't even show up if you Black, right? Unless you speak Korean or Mandarin. For immigrant parents, consultants reinforce the message even students with superhuman qualifications and regularly rejected from Harvard and UC Berkeley. Parents who didn't grow up in the American system and who have moved to the U.S. in large part for their children's education feel desperate and in the dark. Some shell out tens of thousands of dollars for consultants as early as junior high, fearing that anything less than a name brand school could doom their children to an uncertain future. Sometimes ancient students are one who ask their parents to hire a consultant. So you got these kids in junior high school and their parents are shelling out tens of thousands of dollars. Kids whose parents only came to America. They moved to America so their child can have a better education. For many generations in China, you can only have one kid. And if Chinese parents wanted to have more than one kid, some moved to America right at the time of their delivery of birth for their child, just so their child can be an American citizen and they can get anchor citizenship. So, you're dealing with these wealthy parents and they have all type of wealth to spend on their kids so their kids can outcompete you, right? There's a story about a person. It says, Yin pointed out that going to a college is no guarantee for career success, with Asian Americans overrepresented at many campuses, yet underrepresented in leadership positions. And of course, you're going to be underrepresented in leadership positions in America. You know why? Because this is America. It's not Japan. It's not China. It's not Singapore, right? So they start with this story of this lady named S. She's 52-year-old manager at DirecTV in corporate, and she's an immigrant from India. And she has been nudging his daughter to shoot for top schools like Harvard, right? So he wants his daughter to go to top school. So it said, Sam Siri, a senior at El Segundo High School, has a 4.4 GPA and has taken 7 AP courses, which she said was the maximum number offered at her school. She is captain of the varsity swim team and is working on a research project about the role of race in college basketball recruiting. If I had to assume, she's probably wondering why there's not more Jeremy Lins and Yao Mings at college basketball. But anyway, after asking teachers and school counselors to read her admissions essay, Siri decided to hire a private counselor, but she ended up not using the counselor's suggestions because they didn't feel like her voice. So, in essence, they hired this private counselor. The private counselor wrote her admission essay for her, but she didn't want to use the essay that the counselor that they spent thousands of dollars on wrote. Like, we don't even have this, right? And I'm gonna get into this later in the story. Like, this just tells me he wrote the essay for her. But with her last name, she said, you actually fill out the application and realize there's no way colleges won't figure out what race you are. See, these people just want to be white. They just want to blend in with white people. Her older sister, who applied to colleges 5 years ago with a similar resume, got rejected from 18 of 20 or so schools and ended up at Boston College. If you got rejected from 18 schools and you still ended up at Boston College, which is a great university, that means you applied to the Ivy League schools. She probably applied to Duke, Stanford, Vanderbilt. Like, getting denied out of 18 state colleges is one thing. Getting denied by the Ivy Leagues, that's a whole nother thing, right? It's sad because, when you read this article, what you find out is that these parents are hiring consultants. They're hiring consultants as early as middle school. And they hire these consultants so these consultants can come in and basically whip their kids into shape and basically cheat for them if need be. Make sure their test scores is high, make sure their essays is perfect, their topics is perfect. And these are things like, not just tutor the kids. These are, more, you still have to hire a tutor, right? Further down in the article, it said the mom she knows fret about students who seem like slam dunks being denied by top schools. A student known as a genius at San Marino High ended up going to Pasadena City School, said Lee, 48, a researcher at USC Norris Comprehension Cancer Center. Moms were having a mental breakdown. So this kid that was supposed to be a junior ends up at a community college. We don't even know if that's true, right? That may just be a myth. That may just be a myth in their community on why they need to do what they need to do. Let me scroll down a little bit to where I'm reading that, right? A friend told Lee that she regretted spending only $3,000 for a consultant to go over her child's admission essays. For her next child, the friend would spend at least $10,000. With both her and her husband working full-time, Lee feels an admission consultant is necessary just to keep up, especially with the opaqueness and unpredictability of college admissions. It's a fight over information, she said. She said she doesn't think her oldest son needs a consultant yet, but she would like her middle son, a 5th grader, to start working with one. This is insane when I think about it, right? I was looking for an image when I first started this broadcast. I was looking for an image that showed Asian Americans celebrating the end of affirmative action, and I couldn't find one. And it's like the internet erased all of the Asian Americans that was celebrating the end of affirmative action. See, now what they're saying is just that Bloom ended affirmative action. And it's like, no, Students for Fair Administration was mostly Asian students. Bloom tried to do this with a white girl named Abigail Fisher about 15 years ago, and he lost because the Supreme Court justices was mostly Democrat. Trump got his appointees in. Bloom ran it back with Asian students, right? With students from the POC coalition, and he was able to push this thing through. It's funny because you got these students who are spending $5,000 and $10,000 and $15,000 on just consultants. This ain't tutoring. This ain't SAT prep. This is none of the things American Freedman is able to afford. I'm gonna get into this color of wealth. I'm gonna just show you this. This is California. This is where this article comes out of LA Times. This is color of wealth, California. If you look at the median household wealth of white in California, it's 355,000. Blacks, U.S. blacks, right? That's American freedmen. That's us. It is 4,000. Now, African immigrant, right? On the third, African black is 72,000. Mexican is 3,500. Other Latino is 42,000, right? Chinese has the highest median net worth at 408, only surpassed by Asian Indian. So when you look at like who's highest on here, you got, you got Japanese at 592. They're over, median household net worth is over $500,000. Asia Indian, right? So that's not the native Indians, but that's the Indians from India. $460,000 median household net worth, 243. So that's how they can spend tens of thousands of dollars on their kids to be able to compete. See, what they thought is we were going to end affirmative action, and that 15 to 25% of slots that black and brown people were getting that should have only been going to American freedmen is going to go to us. But now that they see like, now that that's gone, we have to really compete on our merit. And it's a little bit broader than that. So they're maneuvering. They're going to use all of the resources that they have to be able to compete against us. And it's sad because I'm going to show you what black people is doing, right? Asian people is the one that killed affirmative action, and they're giddying up to use their wealth to compete. This is nationally, right? So we're not just talking California. This is median household income in the United States. So you just seen the net worth. This is the income. Indian Americans, right? Americans from India have the highest income in America at 100,000. Next is Filipino Americans, 83,000. Next is Taiwanese, 82,000. Next is Sri Lankan American, 74,000. Next is Japanese, 72,000. Next is Malaysians, 70,000. Next is Chinese, 69,000, right? All countries in Asia. Then you get Pakistan, 66,000, until you finally get the white Americans, 59,000, right? If you're looking for African Americans, it's all the way down at the bottom at 35,000. 35,000. So Asians are taking this money, and they're doing everything they can to squash as many American freedmen as possible and compete for those slots at not only Ivy League, but state colleges. And then you got people that's running around saying things like this, right? Here's this lady, she got this Fearless Fund, and Fearless Fund gives money to all people. Let me show y'all what Fearless Fund looks like. It was co-founded by two black women. And what they say is, like, here's Ben Crump, Arian Simone discuss mission to defend Fearless Fund after Bloom challenged Fearless Fund. And they saying we come together to give money to black women, right? Because black women are historically locked out of getting equity, getting loans from the top loan industries in America. Let me load this video so you guys can see what she said.
This guy, Ed Bloom, that got affirmative action overturned. He also went after some law firms for their diversity programs. Of course, he sued us. But what he's trying to do is eliminate any race-conscious decision-making in America. So let me tell you what that means for all of us. Who in this room went to a HBCU? We went to FAMU. Okay, all right. Okay, so if he's successful, there may be no HBCUs. Because of Ed Bloom and his organization, the SBA stopped their 8A program. So anybody, a minority sort of certified business, if he's successful, that won't exist anymore. So companies won't be able to come to you and say, yes, we want to partner with you because you're a black-owned business, or yes, we want to partner with you because you're a woman. If you've ever been through a leadership development program that helped high potential underrepresented folks, black and brown people, he's trying to eliminate all of that. If you've got contracts NIL deals. If you're an athlete, he's coming after that. If you're in media or entertainment. So that's why I often tell people, you might see the news about Fearless Fund and think, oh, that's too bad for those Black women. He's coming for all of us. He's coming for everything Black, and we must fight back and we must stand up.
So they must fight back and they must stand up. Now, one thing about Fearless Fund is that when you see it on the outside is just everything Black. It's just a bunch of Black women. It's just a bunch of Black women, and they promote it as this, Black women investment hub, and they're giving money. Fearless Fund investment in high growth, scalable women of color led ventures across the United States. While we are industry agnostic, we see companies that we feel our team of general and limited partners can add the most value to and help scale. So when you look at this from Fearless Fund, you just see a whole bunch of Black women. If you go to any of Arian Simone's social media, you'll see on her page that is just everything she talks about is, how she's giving money to Black women and Black women companies, how well these Black women companies is doing. They're giving out $10,000 grants. They're giving out $20,000 grants. And it's all, and it's helping Black women because when they did the data, Blacks get the least investment in their businesses, which is true. Not just Black women, but American freedmen men and American freedmen women, right? And they're saying donate to them because their mission is to take that money and give it to women. This was part of the money that companies said they was going to give to certain minority groups after George Floyd protests, right? But what you find out when you look at her, when you look into this company, when you look into the money they gave out, Black women get the least of the grants. Most of the money went to Asian women. And that's the problem with all of this stuff, right? When you look at who affirmative action was intended to benefit and who affirmative action is actually benefit, Black people shouldn't fret over affirmative action. I'm going to read just a snippet of this article, right? So you can understand that while American freedmen shouldn't trip post-affirmative action, because this stuff isn't benefiting us anyway. The first one is about white women, and I'm just going to read just a snippet, right? This is from the Times. It's titled, Affirmative Action Has Helped White Women More Than Anyone. While people of color individually as groups have been helped by affirmative action in the subsequent years, data and studies suggest women, white women in particular, have benefited disproportionately. According to one study in 1995, 6 million women, the majority whom were white, had jobs they wouldn't have otherwise held but for affirmative action. Another study showed that women made greater gains in employment at companies that do business with the federal government, which are therefore subject to federal affirmative action requirements, than in other companies with female employment, rising 15 at federal contractors, but only 2.2 elsewhere. And the women working for federal contractor companies also held higher positions and were paid better. Even in the private sector, the advancement of white women eclipsed those people of color. After IBM established its own affirmative action program, the number of women in management positions that tripled in less than 10 years. Data from subsequent years showed that the number of executives of color at IBM also grew, but not nearly at the same rate. So you got this article that's saying, there's been some small gains in affirmative action for people of color, especially for American freedmen. But the big gains has gone to white women. I'm going to read a snippet of this article right here. It's called Affirmative Action Helps Black Immigrants, but Not Black Americans. The large number of African immigrants on American college campuses, coupled with the remarkably small number of native Blacks on those same campuses called into question the effectiveness of American affirmative action programs. While affirmative action started as a system to right the wrongs of slavery and institutional anti-Black racism. That's incorrect, right? And I'm going to play some of LBJ's speech to showing that's incorrect. Helping wealthy immigrants who weren't here for those struggles doesn't serve any of the program's original intention. So one thing that came out in the wash when Bloom and Students for Fair Administration sued Harvard is that Harvard had a Black student body of 10%. When they looked into that student body, only 10% of that 10% was American freedmen. So 90% of their Black student body was Black immigrants. That's a problem. That's a problem. If this affirmative action was intended to help those who carried over the incidents and the stains of slavery, then why is it helping others more than us? Why are they helping elite immigrants that may have some similar features like us, but don't have the same legacy as us? This is what LBJ had to say when he gave the speech at Howard for affirmative action.
But freedom is not enough. You do not wipe away the scars of centuries by saying now, you are free to go where you want and do as you desire and choose the leaders you please. You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. Thus, it is not enough just to open the gates of opportunity. There is a second cause, much more difficult to explain, more deeply grounded, more desperate in its force. And it is the devastating heritage of long years of slavery and a century of oppression and hatred and injustice. For Negro poverty is not white poverty. Many of its causes and many of its cures are the same, but there are differences, deep, corrosive, obstinate differences, radiating painful roots into the community and into the family and the nature of the individual. These differences are not racial differences. They are solely and simply the consequence of ancient brutality, past injustice, and present prejudice.
So you got him saying who it was for, and it wasn't for everybody. It wasn't for everybody. Mm. It was for us. It was for the American freedmen. Now, when you see Asians, use their wealth, right? Having the most wealth in this country, when you see Asians use that wealth to try to boost their kids into positions in college that was never even meant for them. And you see Black people, we're using what little business that we have to go out and help everybody, right? That's the problem with all of this stuff. That's the problem with all of this stuff. I want to pull up one last sheet. I wish I can find it so I can really show y'all, what this lady that said, he's going to end all of race conscious program. And it's like, y'all not even race conscious. Y'all giving money to everybody. Y'all not just giving money to Black women. It would be one thing if you gave money to just American freedmen women. It's a whole nother thing when you giving money to Asian community. You giving money to women who come from the communities that have greater wealth and greater income, not than American freedmen, but greater income and greater wealth than even white Americans. And you're using what program you have, and you're shutting out Black men. You're shutting out Black men, and you're shutting out mostly Black women. That's not race conscious. it seems that everybody is trying to redefine what race consciousness means. It would be one thing if Fearless Fund just took their money and they just gave it to black women, and they made sure that the black women was American freedmen, or at least black immigrants that came from disenfranchised community. That's not affirmative action, but that would be more helpful than what they're doing. Bloom sued them. You're not going to be able to go back. I don't know why they're trying to mount some defense where they feel like they're going to be able to fight against what Bloom did. It's over. The game is over with. You lost. You were doing it wrong. Affirmative action was never diversity for diversity's sake. And we didn't benefit the most from it anyway. And I'm tired of people coming trying to galvanize up under this umbrella of people of color. There is no people of color. When I just read that first article, it showed you. You got a bunch of Asian people. They don't care about nobody but they sell. They're hiring consultants for their kids to compete against anybody who doesn't come from their community to get those slots. And they're doing it in Chinese and Mandarin and different type of languages. That means this POC umbrella has always been a myth. Fearless Fund needs to get their act together. There is no race consciousness, and there's definitely no race consciousness where you can go outside of the black race and give money to Asians, give money to Middle Easterners, give money to white women, and expect some type of coalition. No, you should have had this fund because you got this money because of George Floyd. You should have used this fund to fund American freedmen businesses, not women of color, and definitely not women of color who comes from the highest income in America and have some of the greatest wealth in America. That's not the legacy of affirmative action. So I don't think anybody from our community needs to fret over affirmative action. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a series of videos, but we need to get it together. We have to treat what happened on June 29, 2023, when Bloom won the case and ended race-based affirmative action, like September 12, 2001. We are not going back. We have to move forward. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe.